Good morning, everyone. My name is Beck Brown, and I'm here with Alison Watts here, and also in conjunction. This is brought to you in conjunction also with. We have a wonderful team at Southern Cross University that you have access to, which I'll talk more about later. But this is primarily brought to you by the Postgraduate Association, and I am here as the conduit facilitator to present this session and a few up-and-coming sessions. I might just hand it over to for a moment to Alison. And
okay, yeah, welcome everyone. I'm Alison Watts from the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association. So as Beck said, we work together to put these workshops on, and nice to see you all here. So I've popped a few things in the chat. You're most welcome to become a member of the Postgraduate Association. I've popped the link in there. And Beck is also doing our last workshop for the year next Friday, Beck, on interviews. And I've posted the link there. Please register and come along. Again, it's Friday morning. And yeah, I'd love to see you there. So welcome, everyone. Back to you, Beck. And
beautiful.
Have a great workshop, everyone. I'm going to go off and do some other stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Alison. I forgot. We're wrapping it up pretty quickly. So we've got a bit of a double barrel one for you today. I'll split it into two parts. There is a lot to cover. I'll try to make it engaging as awesome. We've got someone else here, which is fabulous, engaging. Hi, Vixie. As possible for you. There is a lot to cover, but hopefully it's helpful. And thank you for having me here, Alison, with you. All right. So I might just start by acknowledging and paying my deepest respects to the ancestors, elders, and descendants of the lands upon which we meet and study. I'm mindful that within and without the buildings, these lands always were and always will be Aboriginal land. So to kick off, I want to share with you guys. I know that so much comes through your emails. I know how overwhelmed we are with how many different apps we've got and phones and iPads and all that stuff. But one thing that could be really, really helpful for you to know is that you have consultants like myself. I spent a number of years working with the team there on the Gold Coast campus. And so you got a team of dedicated career staff consultants there to help you with everything to do with the transition. So I did a workshop last week, got a workshop today and a workshop next week. I'm running some one-on-one sessions with you guys, and I'll pop my email address in here. All you have to do is just email me, and we can work out a background careers. The sessions are free. And it's all brought to you by the Postgraduate Association. I'm a consultant with their team. I run them each, so I run a series of workshops, and then I run one-on-ones just to help you guys. It's exactly the same thing as you get with the careers team. But if now's not the time, like at the end of, I'll remind you guys again, and I'll send you out an email. If the end of this time is not the time where you need and want that one-on-one to talk about anything individually, the careers team are there, so you can have that time with them. They're an awesome crew, and I can recommend them and their service very highly, and they help you with all of those things. So last week we talked about the cover letter, and so we're going to jump straight into it. I will talk a lot, then I'll take questions about each of the sections. We're going to do cover letters, resumes, a little bit about selection criteria, and LinkedIn. Spent a bit of time, I think I shared last week, a couple of maybe about 2 years that I've dedicated, that sounds weird, like my approach to LinkedIn for the last couple of years has been a place for me to observe behavior on there and to share what I've seen, what works and what doesn't work, and to share those insights with you, just to add some additional comments on, you know, the traditional things associated with LinkedIn. Cover letters, I think, as shared last week, and I'll try not to make it too repetitious from last week, but I know that not everybody came to last week, and also often we've got to hear things a few times. It's my ding-a-ling-a-lings, my golden rules with a cover letter. Tailor it. That's the goldenest rule of them all. Keep changing that cover letter and tweaking that cover letter until you've put it through Seek and somebody has accepted and offered you an opportunity for some form of interview. Until such point, it means you need to learn more about automatic tracking systems, and I'll talk more about that now, and also tailoring it specifically to the job. So the really challenging thing, and in many ways it really breaks my heart, because, and I mean that very genuinely, is that this is not sad for you guys, because you're here and you're going to learn it. I mentioned this last week, but it is one of the most important things, is that in the modern world at the moment with applying for jobs, is that you've got to convince a machine and a human being. Ideally, you will meet somebody through your lecturer, through your neighbor, through your buddy, like you'll find your access, and you won't have to go through the whole online process, because when you're applying for a job online, you're competing with potentially, you know, hundreds of people. Whereas if you get a job through some sort of referral, you don't have to jump through all the pain points. And I talked quite a lot last week about, I'm conscious of it, is that it's easier to apply and think about applying for a job online than it is about really utilizing all the people that we know and using that as our place to find work. It's uncomfortable. It's way more uncomfortable to use our network than it is to sit back and write some dodgy cover letter and then kind of fall into this like, oh, there's no work out there. So in its simplest form, the quickest route to getting a job is through your network. And I'll talk about that through, you know, LinkedIn. And I've talked I talked quite a lot about that last week. But if there will be times in your career where, for whatever reason, there's a fabulous job that you particularly want to go for. You're at a certain stage in your career. You don't yet have the network. You've moved to Tasmania with your partner's work, whatever. You're going to do a cover letter. So here are the absolute essentials for it. I'd even take a screenshot of that if you focused on, and I'll show you a sample on the next page. Add the date. Add your education and like a hook of your achievements into that first paragraph. Make sure that first paragraph absolutely, it says the best of who you are, and something interesting and something unique to keep the reader's attention. You want to take out as much as you can the words, everything that you can find from that advertisement, from their website, their Instagram posts, anything that you can, the language that they use, you want to weave that, use their language and put it back. So if they want somebody fun and dynamic, you know, you be adventurous and highly spirited, whatever. Okay. One page, and you want to include your internship and any other. Often what I find very commonly with postgraduate students is they really undervalue the other work experience that they have. They're retraining in a different profession. They've come from another part of the globe, and they forget to capitalize on what we call employability skills that just by at the stage of life that you're able to engage in postgraduate education, you already have a whole range of employability skills that include problem solving, organizational skills, communication, etc. And then my other top tips around professional learning, other than helping people, is to engage as much as you can and get out of our jammies. I was actually just chatting in this session beforehand, get out of our jammies and get out there into the world and away from our computers and away from our devices and get out into our communities and engage. It is the best for our well-being, our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, and also for our careers. Make sure you sign it. So, I'd like to share about anyone like to share about their experiences with cover letters? Have you guys got cover letters? Anyone like to share about their existing cover letters? Oh, yes, please. Yeah, Ruth. Oh, can't hear you.
There you go. Yep. So I guess I have been working for a while,
Yes,
and I have had to modify my cover letter multiple times, even for just applying for a progression of roles within my organisation.
Fabulous.
But I also, in one of my roles, have just interviewed a whole bunch of new staff.
Nice.
And so I have read 100 cover letters in the last month.
Right. Fabulous. Do tell. Fabulous. I love
it. So it's quite interesting because there were people applying for the role that weren't even qualified for the role for a starter. So, but there was some, and the big one, that the big no-no is someone had written their cover letter, clearly copied and pasted straight from a ChatGPT prompt. So it didn't address, it was like 3 pages long, and it rambled on about, in that format that ChatGPT does, of like 10 dot points about, I have the personality of this, I have the this, I have the that, but didn't actually address the specific job criteria. So my takeaway to everyone is, if you're going to use ChatGPT to get some ideas of wording and stuff, that's fine, but do not copy and paste. It was blatantly obvious.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Ruth. We just had your top tips of what not to do. And can you tell me, when you were going through them, what were the ones that really stood out for you?
So the ones that stood out were the ones that, I mean, the first thing was, were they grammatically well written?
Nice.
Like, not even the content, but could I understand it on the first read through?
Nice. Ooh, love it.
And that was probably the biggest thing. And then for us, it was directly, do they meet? There was a very specific criteria of qualifications and experience you needed for quite a niche role. And it was, do you even get close to having those? And so it was really easy. If their cover letter mentioned their qualification, it was easy to go, okay, yep, I'll keep going through their application, instead of then having to scroll through the resume as well before you could say whether they were qualified or not. So address the key criteria, educational or experience criteria for the role, although it's going to be in your resume. Like, make sure if there's a key qualification you need, that it's mentioned early in your cover letter, so that I can stop reading and go, oh, cool, yep, they can go to the next pile.
Beautiful. And thank you, because, you've really very beautifully and succinctly described that culling process, and also highlighted the absolute critical, and where people go wrong is not addressing the criteria, like specifically. And I would always suggest, and I do this is that you cut the criteria out, and once you've actually put that criteria specifically into your cover letter, you cross it off your list. So you be really systematic all the way down to, like, sometimes they'll say desirable, and you say, I don't have this, however, I'm willing to get that, you know. So if there's bits that you don't have, address all of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love it. So we're not going to do that because we're not in a face-to-face situation. But what I would like you to do is I would really like you to take a couple of minutes to do this activity. So I'd like you to either do it on your phone, grab a piece of paper, because what we're going to do right now is fundamental to, I'm very conscious that I may not meet you again next week, or you weren't here last week. So I want to make sure that you're equipped with this kind of, yes, you know, cover letters, but also that you're equipped with understanding what happens in this recruitment employability process. And the more that you can get comfortable and familiar and well-versed in a written and oral form of everything of who you are and what you bring to, generally what you would bring to a role, and then specifically what you would bring to a particular role. So if you get this down, some of this down, so I want you to just, we'll take, say 5 minutes, not a lot of time, but to just start to think about what you are most proud of, all right, and in these arenas, because the things that you have done in your home life, when you've traveled, when you engage in your hobbies, you're using, you know, particular skills, you've had part-time work, casual work, full-time work, work in a different profession, you've worked in the tuck shop at university, you've done some public speaking, you've worked in teams, you may be a part of the Toastmasters Club, you might do jiu-jitsu, you might do karate, you may do swimming club, and then at home, you know, perhaps you're a foster parent, or that you have 5 children, or you're part of a blended family, and then it's all about the framing. So I'd like you to spend some time, 5 minutes, and I'll stop talking, and to scribble as much as you can. I'm going to put a little timer on. Scribble and just let it flow. Yep, you can't think of what you've done with the social club. Don't worry, move on. Get it down on the page, because this is where you're going to talk about it in your cover letter. You're going to talk about it in the interview. You're going to talk about it in LinkedIn. You're going to talk about it in your resume. You're going to talk about it in the 3 interviews that you're going to go to. You're going to talk about it when you go to a networking event. You're going to talk about it when you're on the bus and you meet someone, you're standing at the bus stop. You're going to talk about, this is you, this is who you are, this is your future, and this is why, you know, you're doing postgraduate study. So I'm going to pop a little timer on now. I'm actually going to give you 6 minutes. We're going to go right up until 30. Popping it on there. Don't leave us. We love you being here. Start this process, because the more you get comfortable with this, the better and the easier. Also, you'll start to identify some gaps, but we'll talk about more of that as we go. So I'm going to put the timer on, and just let it flow as much as you can. 6 minutes starting now. Let's see if I can find you some music to play. Oops. Pop some music on for you in the meantime. So I want to know who you are and what you're most proud of in your professional life, your home life.
You the you on the sidewalk. Instead, you all we did was care for each other. And I was wrong, we were both young. Somebody to lean on. Down the same hall. Because let's okay, go.
All right, just a little under. Okay, so let me just start my sharing again. Oh, this is going to be interesting. But, might make me share. Oh my god. We've had some can you guys can you see the whiteboard there?
Yes.
Well, that's great. So I've had this I'm going to get around this today. All right. I'm going to have a very creative approach to how I run this. I've got a privacy issue with my screen sharing. All right, I'm going to have to find a way to deliver this without the visuals. Oh, I think how I can do Give me 2 secs while I troubleshoot my. 1 second, see if I can do it that way. This will be interesting. Okay. Can you guys see me? Yes, you guys can see me. Okay. We're going to have to do something completely different that I've never had to do before. So, can you guys write on the whiteboard? Oh, nice. Beautiful. Okay. Excellent. So, what I'm going to get you guys, going to get you guys to do is to either, well, first let's, because essentially it's a workshop. It's not necessarily me showing you a whole lot of slides. So I'm going to have to, and I have, in its simplest form, there's a privacy sharing challenge that we've had. Thought we fixed it, and there's no way I can, because I had the problem last week before the session started, no way I can fix it in here now. But we're here, and I've got you here, so I'm going to let you go. All right. So, thinking about the cover letter, what did you, let's just start with Wilson, what did you think, you can put it in, either put your mic on or in the chat, what did you think are one of your most proudest things that you would like to include in a cover letter? What are you most proud of? Anyone? I'll put you on the spot there. David, Ruth, who'd like to share? What are you most proud of? Oh, thank you. Oh, nice. Awesome. Thank you. Yep. Promotions are brilliant. So if you're, so if we just go back to, I'm going to have to talk my way through this. In fact, I'm going to see if I can have a little go at typing. Type on there. We got promotion. Yeah, beautiful. Ruth, do you want to type on the screen there what you, so promotion is brilliant because it gives evidence of the value that you have contributed to the organization. Ruth, what was something that came up for you in terms of most, you can type it, scribble it onto the screen there. What came up for you? Ooh, nice. Oh, expanded the service. Brilliant. Love it. Excellent. Excellent. So again, so both of the, yes, here we go, work expansion and quality improvement projects. Nice. Now, the thing about promotion and that example that Ruth has given, both of those are what we would call demonstrated examples of what you have actually achieved in the role. So here's like a massive ding-a-ling-a-ling moment with what the difference between an average cover letter and a excellent cover letter. And this applies to your resume as well. So a average cover letter will talk about the tasks. So in Ruth's case, she would talk about what she was required to do rather than what she's actually the results. So super duper important results of the work. A promotion is actually a demonstration of the results of the work. Oh, sure, no worries. Brilliant. What else came up for you guys in that time? What else came up for you that you thought you would consider including? I'll put a little heading here. What's come up for uni that you could expand on? What sorts of things could go in there for uni, your time at university? The things that are beautiful, while people are so keep them coming, and I'll keep talking through them, see if we come up. Graduated with honours, beautiful. Now I want to talk about what happens in this process of unpacking all this stuff, and there's no coincidences in that I've been taken away with some of the tools that I would normally do are taken away, but are given a chance to be a little more creative and different in how I approach all of this. The graduated with honours, brilliant. But also I want to talk to those of you that maybe don't get honours and you're getting passes. Both of them are of value. I've seen undergraduate and postgraduate students that get passes that have gone on to be entrepreneurs, start their own businesses, that have excelled, and then also those students that graduated with honours then go on to achieve great things. This process of unpacking what we have to offer a potential employer in our cover letter, in our interview, in our resume, in every touch point, is that we have to remember who we are. And this is important for our well-being, it's important for our relationships, important for our work, is to think about what makes us special and unique, different to anybody else. And it's the collection of those things that makes us of great value and great service to our, to the works that we go in. So student association roles, brilliant example. So for some of you guys that are not near a university campus, those roles, of course, are less accessible. However, if you're living in Brisbane, you perhaps have better opportunities in terms of some of the part-time work and some of the other postgraduate positions than if you're living down in Lismore. So you got to work with what you have. But student association roles are brilliant opportunity to build those communication skills, to improve your administration skills, to solve problems, etc., etc. So if I were going to include student association roles from in my cover letter, I would be thinking about, well, I've done that role. What have I learned and gained from that role? Graduating with honours demonstrates that dedication, that commitment, that strive for excellence. Right? Feel free to steal any of my words. What else do we do at uni in our studies that is potentially useful to include? What else are we doing in our studies? lots and lots of things. You're developing your analytical skills. You are working in teams. You're working in pairs. You're working in small groups. Feel free to write any of this down. You're doing presentations. You're working on projects. You're solving problems. You're analysing data. Placements. Hello. I could run a whole session just talking about placements. Yes. And if you have the good fortune of getting some sort of placement, any sort of placement, even if it's kind of work experience placement, you can take up prime real estate with that in your resume and in your cover letter and in the interview when you talk about that. And thank you for, because it's a how many of you guys, just so I sort of know, type in the chat box whether you have placement as part of, because this is a critical conversation, the placement thing, and it's a little bit, it serves some students better than others, and it just happens to be what course you're in. So just give me a heads up, like whether you've got placement as part of your degree in your who's got placement? Anybody? So placement is like internship, work experience. Oh, undergraduate nurse. Nice. Okay. Yes, on the second year. Okay. So the thing about, for those of you that do have some sort of placement, whether it's, I say this all the time, I know that most people are really reluctant to undertake an optional placement. I cannot express to you enough the role that placement plays and the experience that you gain from that as the transition. Like you're all here at this session trying to, you know, learn about cover letters, resumes, LinkedIn, and to help you through that transition from study into work, to be in some sort of employment. And placement is the backbone of that transition. It definitely doesn't mean that if you don't have placement, but what it does mean is that you can actually start to frame and tell a new story of your future career and your, you know, where you're heading. You can use that placement to reframe who you are and where you're heading. So placement is absolutely critical to your future. But I've seen plenty of people that, and I'm always really conscious that I hold that nobody gets isolated in this process, in that, because I find that our self-esteem, like when we're going through transition, is a little bit more tenuous, a little bit more vulnerable than when we're, you know, securely in a job. And so I always try to hold things in two hands, because your mental and emotional state as you go through this transition, and your capacity to remain optimistic and to not build in stories of, I haven't got placement, therefore I won't get a position, or I'm an international student and I haven't got work experience in Australia, or I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I'm too tall, or the wrong color, the wrong size, I've got a disability. Those stories that we all have them. We all have fears about being found out. We lost a job. We were made redundant. We don't have the right skill set. We haven't finished our studies. We've got one more unit to do. Whatever that is, we carry that with us. We carry it somehow into the cover letter. We sort of also want to tell them sometimes. I see students often say, I haven't got experience, and then they dob on themselves, and because it's a fear, they'll put it in the cover letter and they put it in the resume. And so we want to let go of those things that we don't have in this process, because there will always be things that we don't have. And what we want to do is to cultivate everything that we do have, and to build our self-esteem and our self-confidence and our self-worth and our nurturing of ourselves as we move through this next challenging phase. And what I want to tell you is that, like in Ruth's case, she was a human being that was reading through those cover letters. But I want to let you know that in many, 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 many instances, that initial culling is done by a computer. And so even when a computer does that culling of our cover letter, that sense of rejection, it burns. But I want you to know that it's likely in the early stages going to be a computer. And so that we don't let that affect our self-esteem, and that we plow on ahead anyway. All right, so we're going to get, we can include things in our cover letter and our resumes associated with things that we've achieved at work. So over on this left-hand side, we've got some great examples here: promotion, other experience, casual jobs, casual work, part-time working at McDonald's, working at Target, working in Woolworths. Any of that stuff is of value. Then the things that we study at university, our grades, our projects, if anybody's doing coursework, any research, you want to unpick anything and everything that relates to both the role, relates to differentiating you and telling a story about, holistically who you are and how it fits with that role. What about, let me just grab the slides that I was going to have for you from behind here. Just give me one sec. Got some questions for you that I'm going to get you to do now as well. You'd have them on the screen, but I'm going to see if I can do something a bit funky. Copy them onto the whiteboard, given that's all I've got. Let's see if I can. Otherwise, I'm just going to give you some more questions to work through, because this process is really unpacking what I want you to get familiar with. Text, let's do that. Let's see if I can. Here we go. Oh, yay, happy days. Stroke of luck. Right, I'm just going to do something here. There we go. All right. So I want you to think about, so I've managed to stick a little bit of it in here, but it hasn't worked super duper well. I want you to take a little bit of time now and to think about any job, any part-time job, any place. So for example, Ruth, you had done some previous work, with nursing, and now you're in, I think it's leadership, healthcare and leadership. So any opportunities there where you demonstrated leadership. So consider your placement or a recent internship role or a part-time job. And I want you to think about any key learning outcomes, any achievement. So anything that demonstrates the value of that work you did. That's the first thing I want you to do. Scribble it down on a piece of paper and keep this paper. And then what were the most valuable things that you learned? So for example, it might be something really quirky, like, you learned in hospitality that, people often, do business over, the business meetings are held in cafes, and, it's an opportunity for XYZ. anything that you have contributed to the organization, any valuable learnings. It might have been employee of the month. It might have been, you might have been given some extra shifts. You might have stepped up when somebody got sick. You might have acted in a role that wasn't previously there. You might have opened or closed the store. You might have worked in a different department for a short period of time. You might have helped them out at the Are You OK Day. Anything that you have done, because these are the bits that are interesting. And you can tweak these. Once you know what these things are that make you different, you can tweak these according to the role. Once you know what all these examples are and you become familiar with your best achievements and get comfy with those, they become your they become part of your story, part of your tag, part of what you talk about when you're in the lift. And when you know, I spent 3 months working in South America, you know, building huts. Or it might not even be that exotic. It might be the process of immigrating or coming to Australia as an international student taught you about resilience and determination and sticking to a goal. And it taught you about independence. It taught you about courage. All of which, you know, I know we've got a few international students here, all of which is undoubtedly true, because I know the hurdles of just recently been in China, just traveling to another country, let alone spending, like enrolling in the course and providing all the documentation and the it's impressive. Undertaking postgraduate study, completing undergraduate study, what that taught you. But we're focused just a little bit on any other work that you have done and what you've contributed. Perhaps it can be something simple like, and those simple things really, so perhaps you had a colleague that, you know, perhaps you're going into a leadership role or a social work role or social services or something to do with health or well-being, and that, you know, you were the person that people talk to in the workplace, told you that you were the support person for your team when things were difficult, or you were the one that always, in staff meetings, you were the one that always offered potential solutions, or you were the one that was optimistic. You're the one when you're at uni in a group that helps other people. Or like Yilin here, I saw an amazing example, and I'd be happy for you to put that on your resume here, is that in a workshop we had here last week, Yilin just had like beautiful, like fun sense of humor that she would drop. I didn't get to see you guys and have your cameras on, but would contribute by keeping the mood light and engaging and just really fun, and humor and good fun is part of connection, and it's a great skill to have. Oh, nice, brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. How to handle complaints and rejections professionally in a service industry. That is gold, absolute gold, because you know, we have post-COVID, we have an environment now where technology has moved at a rapid pace. We have organizations with not enough staff in them, and so customers are potentially cross all of the time about something, because they're not getting the service that they've bought, and they don't have the staff supporting them, and then there's systems that don't work. And so that is a brilliant example. Thank you. Karen's alerts. Totally. So Poor Karens of the world. I remember when the whole Karen thing was happening, and I was walking my dog, and I was always chatting to these people, this couple. And then one day I said, "Oh, what are your names?" And he says, I can't remember what his name was. And then she said, "My name is Karen." I was like, "Oh no." But we can't laugh because it might be like the Becks of the world, so I have to be really careful. You get them everywhere. You get them in the gym. You get them in Woolies. Poor Karen. I just felt so bad when the lady said her name was Karen, because I just kind of went, oh. It's not so bad. It's died down. I met a Karen again recently, and it died down, and afterwards went, oh, that was a Karen. But at the time, it's been like, I don't know, was it 12 months ago? Anyway. Oh, that was a wicked little snigger. All right. So other things that that weren't on there where we could draw from, particularly when, like, I know that you guys are often all in really different stages. I think one of the hardest, actually, no, I was going to say one of the hardest times is when you haven't got a lot on your resume, but that's not true. What I see, and that's why I want to kind of take some of the power out of this, I see people struggle no matter what they are. I see career practitioners, I see senior academics, I see business owners, I see entrepreneurs, I see all kinds of people struggle with their careers. And because I was going to say, like, one of the hardest points is when you like early stage of career and you've got nothing to put in your cover letter and your resume, but that's not true, because of, you know, a mum of 4 or 3, or even a single mum that's been at home for a couple of years, they're on struggle street too. So I say that just to reassure you that you're only at where you're at, and that you're not at that place forever. So if there's a period where you have to apply for a job that's not ideal, and it's not the right skills or whatever, that's not all of who you are in that moment. Or you're in a role that you don't feel valued or whatever. You say, okay, well, for now I'm going to do this because I've got to pay the mortgage, or I've got to pay the school fees or whatever. But you have a plan to work on and move towards something else. That's just a little bit of a side note. But what I wanted to talk about was what led me to that thought was, when you don't have a lot, other things to think about is sport. Sport is always, always, always valued. Not necessarily team sport. Like there's this kind of discussion in the careers landscape about, you know, how you can put sport into your cover letter and into your resume. Yes, and the value of team sport. But as somebody kindly brought to my attention the other day, if you like surfing and fishing, they're solo activities, but they both require patience. You've got to sit there sometimes and wait for a wave. You also, when you're surfing, you have to be, particularly now, if you want to catch a wave, you have to be strategic and you have to plan your attack. And then also, when you're a fisher person, a huge amount of patience involved. Last week, I talked about travel. And you guys, the internationals in the room, I'm conscious that I am talking a lot to the internationals, but I'm trying to sort of cover those of you guys that would have had work experience here, and then also things that come up for international students. Traveling here to Australia, that gives you something also to talk about. Or perhaps you've traveled in other parts, perhaps you've traveled in other parts of Asia with your family. What travel does for us, and I shared this last week, what I often do, and we'll take a quick break, and we'll talk about more about the resume, and I'll see if I can find a way to fix. I don't think I can, but fix what's. I might have to jump out of the session and see if I can get. I'm afraid I'll lose you guys. Anyway, I'll think about that. But what travel does, and I shared this last week. Even if you took your family to Fiji and you did some, you know, cultural activities, or you moved, you can talk about the learning that came from taking your 3 and your 5-year-old into the village. and what you learned from that experience. But also for those of you guys that perhaps haven't been to Fiji with your family, or those of you that are in Australia, you can frame that around your story here as as part of your cover letter, as how you came to be an international student here. So, that you're studying a Bachelor of, you're doing an MBA, you relocated to Australia because you were intrigued by the Australian culture. You enjoy the multicultural society that we hear. This process has taught me, the process of relocating here has taught me valuable skills and employability. I am now more resilient. I am more culturally aware. I have self-awareness that I didn't have prior to this experience. I feel more confident in my capacity to work with people from all walks of life. Yeah, there's half. We're moving into, and what I've just blah, blah, blah to you is many of you guys in some form or another could write a version of that. And in that we've seen, that little blurb, patience, and you could talk about optimism and the challenges of that. So it's all about the framing. What politicians do, great politicians, great leaders, great speakers, is that they use information. And if you think about, sadly, the Donald Trumps of the world, but they're fantastic at telling a story and getting that narrative and getting that buy-in, and being persuasive. So your cover letter is about that persuasion. It's about talking, as Ruth beautifully talked about, is connecting it specifically to the role. So what many, many, many people don't do is that they don't sit down with that cover letter and scrutinize every word that's on there. I would say you take that and you go and you take that process and you keep doing that until you start getting some hits and runs on the board. Right, we're going to take a quick break. I want to talk about and find a way that I can give you as much as I can on my top tips on resumes and, very importantly, automatic tracking systems. I shared some useful tools. So I'm going to share, after a quick break, I'm going to share some of my favorite tools for getting effective resumes to help get the best results from automatic tracking systems. And then I'll share some LinkedIn stuff. So let's come back at, let's say at 10 past, and we'll keep going. Here we go. I've found a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. Beautiful. Oh, be back shortly. Okay. Just one more minute. Can you guys interesting. So obviously they want us to share like this now. Okay. Can you guys see the screen? Can you see the slides? Oh, so good. Fabulous. Okay. Bit of fun. Zoom and just all technology we use, they update things and then they change things and then your access to things. So I'm so sorry about that little great. All right. We're right on. Beautiful. Like this. Okay. So yeah. All right. Thanks for the feedback. So we talked about promotions. Here are just a few other things I want to quickly cap off. Love that chops the bottom of my head off. In terms of other things that we may not have talked about. We've talked about improving a little bit of improving efficiencies. Doing any work with like charities, things. If you just go and volunteer at the Moolumbar show once a year, put that on your resume. And it takes a couple of hours of your time. And it's really, you know, just as an example, and you're working with palliative care that is and raising money, and you know, you're standing on the gate raising money for palliative care at the Moolumbar show. That's giving back, but also you get to meet people, you get to improve those other skills, and you get to demonstrate that you're engaged. And so often we think about like starting a side hustle or a part-time job or volunteering or doing a sport, you know, going and starting a swimming class or drumming or dancing or whatever, as something like extra that we just can't manage anymore in our lives. And this, I think I mentioned this last week. There's a recent study, a recent Harvard University study about well-being, and so the previous stuff about this, and this does relate to your career and employability, is that what they've found is that when people do a little bit more rather than less in their lives, their quality of life goes up. So what we often happen is, as students, I remember talking to the psychologist at the uni about this, that we let go of things when we get really tired and really stressed, but in fact they're the things that we should keep, because they serve other parts of us, and also they're part of that bigger picture. So I really encourage you, next time you get tired, yes, absolutely, take a rest and regroup, but then go and do something that you love to do. It gives you, go out for dinner with your friend or take that hike or whatever, because it gives you other things that we tap into that we need for well-being. And it also helps us move towards, you know, that bigger picture of what we want to be doing in our lives. And I just love that the science is there now. And very quick true story. I remember exactly where I was a number of years ago, meeting this student online. I had a phone appointment with her. And she said to me, I run a dance school, I have 4 children, I have a full-time job. Like, it was just like, nobody really wants that. It's an exaggerated, but it was a true story. And I just remember sitting there. I remember exactly where I was. I remember thinking, how do you do? And I said to her, how do you do all of that? And she said, one of those outlets gives me energy for the other. And now after hearing that study, I was like, oh, right, that makes sense. So if you want to improve your opportunities for greater employment, to have a better opportunities, better work opportunities, better financial and emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, which is all connected to our working lives, do more. Even if you've got a ton on your plate, because there is actual science, which I really like the science of it all. So don't worry if you haven't won an award. If you've been in a book club, or if you really enjoy reading, talk about why you really enjoy, that you like to learn about artifacts from China, or that you really like working on a committee for the local tuck shop, yeah, and talk about what that's given you, what you've learned, how that could potentially be of value. That work that you've done on the committee for your kids' club or whatever might mean that you're the work health and safety officer in a voluntary work in that office job that you've got. So always, here's just some quick ding-a-ling-a-lings and we'll move on to the resume. I just want to give you a bit of a visual. I talked a lot about this first paragraph here. And then these coming paragraphs, you're giving, and I got you to do some writing. Those paragraphs are giving the evidence. So be very specific. When I was working for the events company in Cairns, I did the results of my work, X, Y, Z. When I was in retail with the Body Shop, I'm most proud of the most proud accomplishments were associated. This is relevant, blah, 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 blah. One of the things that is also really important to do is to talk about why you want to work for the organization. But if we backtrack a little bit, ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling moment, do your due diligence on why you would like find out as much as you can about why you would want to work for that organization. So, and it can be harder early. Yes. Do your due diligence. Like, you're going to be spending a lot of time with this organization. So find out. I saw this interesting post. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I can't remember the details of it, but I was kind of like, woo. And they were talking about, they were looking for a job, and then they, and it was actually a career consultant. They said to look, see if you can track down all the people that have recently left the organization, and approaching them and asking them why they felt about the organization. It could save you a lifetime of pain. I can't remember I didn't read it in detail. I kind of went, whoa, wow. And I hadn't seen, like the update on the comments of that. But certainly that point of doing as much research, and you go into that interview, that cover letter, that resume, full-bodied as you, yeah? They're lucky to get you, not from this place, and they're not, don't go from this kind of egotistical, yeah? There's a beautiful middle place where you go in and you know that you've done this, and this. And if they don't want you, fine, you move on and you go somewhere else. And you don't let, particularly because it's going to be a computer, let the computer reject you. Let them reject you, move on. But really importantly, in this cover letter, you're going to tell them, and often in the interview, you're going to tell them why you want to work for them. So be really clear, like think about, but still be discerning, even if, it's your first graduate position, you haven't worked in Australia, do it still. Value yourself, because they will feel that, all right? And there's nothing like real genuine confidence. So what I saw once somebody do recently is that they put in the top paragraph there why they wanted to work for an employer straight up. It worked. I hadn't seen somebody do it like that before. It worked really nicely. But think about everything that you do it from a place of being genuine, because they will feel that that genuineness that goes with it. So think about why you really want to work for KPMG, or why you want to work for Victoria University, or why you want to work for McDonald's, or whatever it is, whatever the organization is. Why do you really want to work there? Figure out why it is you really want to work there. And then figure out how you guys are a really nice match and tell that story. Make sure you close the letter, positive tone, etc., etc., sign and signature. So here's just a really quick recap. Tailor, Tailor, Tailor. I think Ruth brought that home for address. Address to try to always find out who's actually recruiting for the position. Ideally, you want to find out the recruiter's actual name, because when I get letters in the mail addressed to the household, I chuck it out. When I get a letters addressed to Beck Brown, then I pay attention to it. The same, they can see that you've taken a bit of extra time to find out who's. People often tell me it's really hard. Yeah, if it's too hard, and you know, sometimes there's a recruitment team, you know, there's a middleman or whatever, but just do your best. You can email. It takes 5 minutes to send an email and say, I'm applying for this role. Could you please tell me who you're attention it to? Sometimes it's at the bottom of the job ad. Include relevant skills, experience, focus specific on evidence-based achievements, 1-page concise paragraphs. Selection criteria, I won't spend a lot of time on, other than to say the selection criteria in many jobs is written in the job advertisement. Sometimes if you're going for, and some of you guys will be more familiar with it, certainly Ruth with your background in nursing, so any government, federal, local, state, some not-for-profits, universities, a police force, a defence force, there will be a separate selection criteria that you will need to address. My top tip is, if you don't know, get somebody else to make sure that you follow the instructions. If they want you to address separate selection criteria and they've got a series of questions, then address it separately. If it says address the selection criteria in a 1 or 2 page, sometimes for those health roles, it'll be in a 2-page cover letter, then do that. If you don't know, then take it to the careers team, and they are amazing and will be able to help you with that. When there's separate selection criteria, it's supposed to be, and every time you turn on the news at the moment, you'll hear stories of inappropriate kind of recruitment that occurs in federal government. And it's good because the bar is coming higher, that sort of nepotism and jobs for the boys and all that sort of stuff. Excuse me, scratch of the year there. The most important thing is that you follow the instructions. If you don't understand the instructions, get somebody to help with you. Selection criteria, you're going to be addressing it anyway, in, like, if they say, even if it's not a formal selection criteria, and they say we want a go-getter, then in your cover letter you're going to demonstrate how you're a go-getter. You know, I'm a go-getter because, you know, when I was at uni, I joined the football team and I was in the student association. I worked part-time. There you go, evidence, examples. And, you know, you're only going to go for a go-getter job if you want to be a go-getter. And if you're a go-getter, go for what it is that really talks to you about what they want and how that aligns with you. Because if you just go out there going after everything, then you're trying to, like, going into the ocean to try to catch fish with not particularly good tools. But if you find a small space where you know the fish are, you know you've got the right tools, you know you've got the right equipment, you've got enough energy, you've got enough time, you know exactly when to drop that line, what sort of food to have on it, then your results are going to be better. When you're in the interview, which is what we're going to talk about next week, and I'm trying to sort of talk all about this holistically, because we did that little unpacking exercise at the beginning. You know who you are, you know what your best achievements are, and you're really going to talk to that in the interview. by the time you get to the interview stage, you're a long way through the process. But as I mentioned last week, I find that that's the area that many students need to spend a lot of time. Assessed on your ability, blah, blah, blah. I think we've talked, so here's another little mind mapping activity. So you can look at communication skills, so this is where you could have gained those communication skills. Through your diversity. So I've talked quite a lot about that in terms of examples of being an international student, or perhaps all the travel that we've talked about, or the part-time work, or moving to different cities, or perhaps activities as a kid, or moving with your family. Conflicting ideas might be working in diverse teams, electronic media. So often when we think about communication, we just think about I just think about part-time work, but this is where electronic media, we're communicating on that platform all of the time. Here's a few things, some do's and don'ts. Respond to all criteria, which essentially means when the job ad is there, answer all of it. Every single little detail on there, and give it with evidence about either what you do have, or if you're missing your first aid, tell them as long as you have, I've enrolled in my first aid. So talk about, address all of it. Don't overgeneralize, use examples. Use Grammarly. Here's just some examples you can have a look at. I'll send you all the slides from here. I'll scoot through some of this. They're just examples of how to address specific selection criteria. And here's just an excerpt from a particular job. I'm not going to spend too much time on that one. That was just got a different photo on this. Oh, 2000. That's because this morning I put the wrong slide up. Okay, so sorry, it's got 2011 on there, the wrong day. Okay, so what questions do you have for me specifically about, before I spend the last part of this session on the resume, some of those tools that I was going to suggest with you, but I wanted to just cover off on the cover letter. Questions about that, anything to do with cover letters, anything to do with achievements, anything in that pre-stage place. All right, good. Was it helpful? Well, let me just see. Was that helpful for you? Okay, cool. Perfect. All right, let me just see if I can undo this one. I'm sorry about that slide there that had 2012 on there. A bit bumpy today. Let me just see if I can unhook this one and see how I can get the other one loaded into this, loaded into this space here. It is a bit different to how I would have liked any of it to go. That's the way it is. Because I've never shared virtually in here. I'm going to pull up a different set of slides. But anyway, we'll stop, see if I can stop. That's recording. Stop the recording. Here we go. Let's see if we can try something else. Here we go. All right, just give me a second. Just see if I can load up something else for you in this unusual. Oh, here we go. This should work. Fingers crossed. Thank you for your patience with this. Let's see if this works. It's just loading them up by the looks of things. Nice. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to slide through a little bit of this for you. I've made a lot of this clear, but as I said, it's not perhaps other people's styles, but it's mine in that I may not always get you guys for 3 workshops. So I always try to get as much of all the other bits that I can and get you to think about this process really holistically. So in your cover letter, I've been talking a lot about who you're going to bring in, right? When you go into that interview, when you do that resume, when you write your career profile at the top, when you write your achievements, when you write that cover letter, you're communicating in every way your values, what motivates you, parts of your personality, your skills, and your interests. So we talked a lot about hobbies and social clubs and all those other things. In undertaking this process of out there into the marketplace, resume, LinkedIn, which we're coming to now, even on your LinkedIn and your resume, you're communicating this and your uniqueness, all right, by way of these. So we've been talking about the cover letter. We've also been talking about the selection criteria. Now, the reason the selection criteria is over here is because, just to keep it as simple as possible for you, is that often for the majority, it depends on what profession you go into, but think of anything outside of sort of government, local, federal, those examples that I gave you, they're going to ask for the selection criteria within the cover letter. Now we're going to talk about the resume. But when you actually submit, and there's a million variables to this, so I won't confuse you, or just all I would say is follow the instructions. But generally speaking, if you apply for a job through Seek here in Australia, or Jura, or Ethical Jobs, you will upload, it will give you an option. I would always say add a cover letter, and you'll upload a resume. And if it's for particular jobs, you'll also include a separate selection criteria, and then you'll upload it through a portal. I won't spend a lot of time, as I said, on that, because there are really variables. So for example, you could apply for a job on Seek, and then you get all the way through the process, and then you actually have to go onto the website, and then you have to put all that again and answer a whole bunch of additional questions for the company that you work for. Or sometimes they want the cover letter and the resume as one document, and then sometimes they don't want a PDF. So there's lots of variables. All I would say, even if you applying for a hospital job and they're, one's in Tweed and one's in Byron Bay, don't make assumptions that because the one in Byron Bay, they only wanted this. Just follow the instructions, because many people don't even get to the first stage because they just haven't followed the instructions. And it's hard because we get so much information now, and it's just hard. But just take the time, or get somebody else to check that for you. Here's some top tips for your resume. 1 to 2 pages. I talked about this last week. I think you're safe. I think the safest place, and my preference in the world that we're in at the moment, is straight down the middle. Shoot down the middle. Mine's 2 pages. I'll stay with 2 pages. 2 pages is not too much, and it's not too little. I've seen some cracking 1 pages, and I've seen some brilliant 3 pages. Definitely no 4 pages. And I personally would say not 2.5 pages. 2 full pages or 3 full pages. When you do 2.5 pages, it looks like you forgot what you were doing, had a snooze, and gave up. That's just me. But what happens is they go like this, and they're all engaged, and then it's like, you didn't finish your assignment. So if you're fatten it out, and we'll talk about, well, I've given you lots of different ways today to fatten it out. And I love wherever you come to connect with me, whether you're in your second year, whether you're in your transition year, but just know that your capacity to fatten up that resume is ongoing. You are continuously doing things in your life that give you the capacity to put more in there. 2 to 3 referees. These days, I think you're safe with 2. Very importantly, I see this all the time, and I see it particularly from people with different cultural backgrounds, because I think it's more common and part of the process in other parts of the world. We don't need to know your marital status, your religion. Photo is optional. They will get a photo of you on LinkedIn. I would 100% say that you must put a photo, or yeah, I would say if you're going to have LinkedIn, you must have your photo there. But a photo on your resume is optional. I've mostly seen it done really, really well. Other career practitioners say a big fat no, but I've seen it mostly done really well. I've seen some really good examples. You just want to make sure that if you're going for the Hilton, your photo looks like you're going for the Hilton. So Hilton, they want particular grooming, they want minimal makeup, they want minimal, but they do want a bit of, jewelry. They want you to look, 5-star in your grooming and your presentation. So if you're going for a DJ, I saw a student years ago, I've never forgotten it. She was going for a job with a DJ, and she kind of had this and it was right. She had the right look. I saw another student. She was going for a job as a professional conference organizer. She was an older lady. She had a suit jacket on, little pearls, and she had little glasses, and she looked exactly like a professional conference organizer. She got the job, and she's still there, actually. So use Grammarly, spell check, consistent headings, avoid graphics. So here is a massive ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling moment. SCU careers team, they offer you some templates for resumes. They give you some for SCU/careers. They give you templates, so use their templates. And I've been talking a lot. I want to ask you guys, who's currently got a resume? Oh, several. Okay, great. Who else we got here? Wilson, Jason. Oh, hey, Roxy, you got, yeah, okay, cool. So here's some tools, as I promised. So SEU careers, Seek have really good templates. So Seek templates, and not because they're fancy, because use a Seek template because they know how to get through the automatic tracking, and the Seek template is going to like it when you apply for a job through Seek. The Career One used to be neck and neck, like Myers and David Jones. Career One used to be like, I think it's Career One, all one word. They used to be like Seek, but they have a free career, a free resume. A human being will look at your resume, and a computer, a bot. I would get both, and I would use that even before I got SCU careers team, not because they're not fabulous, they are fabulous, but you must find out what the machine wants. And here is my top tip. Resume Worded is another bot, and you can use, I have no affiliation with any of these organizations. You can put your resume through Resume Worded. I put it through 12 times before they would ask you to pay the premium. You can get your resume up to 85% on Resume Worded. I guarantee, I'd almost put my money on. And I've shared it with people, and I've had great feedback from people about Resume Worded. If you drop, so what you do is you just grab your resume. You could even do it while you're sitting here now listening to me go grab your resume, grab your favorite one, the one you're most proud of. chuck it in there. Be ready to hold your mouth closed, that you die of the feeling of rejection when it comes back and goes ba-bum-bum. But what it does, it tells you where on your resume that you need to make changes. So then you can actually go and make those changes just like a human being, except it's even better. It's a human being on crack. In that it's next level because it knows what the computer wants in terms of, so then you go and make changes. It'll tell you like, there's passive words that you've used in this section. And then you go and find some more active, action-orientated words. Put it back 3. You'll get your score up to 60%. And you're like, oh my God, okay. So then it'll say, it needs to be 2 pages. So we go back. It needs 2 referees or no. The only thing that it does say on there is that it wants referees, or it used to. And again, as I have discovered today, that the machines do like to update themselves and all sorts of surprises happen. But it used to deduct points if you don't put your referees on there. I always suggest referees. There was a period kind of in the 90s, maybe it's back again. I just disagree with it. You just want to make it easy. And so they don't want to have to go and come back to you. If you think about busy professionals, they don't want to come back to you and have to ask you for your referees. Just put them on there. Consistent headings, avoid graphics and tables, keep it simple. Here is my favorite. I use it. I've given it to other people. Here's my favorite resume template. Again, they are in the business. I have no business affiliation with any of these guys. Hayes is a recruitment company. They've been around since probably the 80s. But they're Sydney based, they're current, they're up to date, and they have a really, really slick. They've got a few different resume templates on there. Pick one that you like, and they're free. You don't get spammed by them. Just go in there, grab their template, and off you go. Don't tell anyone I told you. Except I just put it on. I'm sure I'm doing them a favor. They are a recruitment company, so if you happen to be in Sydney, and it's free. So, and it's nice. It's very similar to the Seek one. It's very similar to the SCU one. So any one of those. The reason I particularly like, there's one on there that I particularly like, and you put your competencies up there. So, if it were my profession, it would be competent in, diversity and career assessment tools, whatever. So whatever your speciality is. But that works really well because you get to use words that then can, like when the automatic tracking system goes looking for words associated with career development and career assessments is one of the things that they've added, then it just ups your chances. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend using those. Graduate resume, here are the things that I would, and you'll see that there's some, similar to your cover letter, in that you don't want to repeat. I see sometimes when I review cover letters and resumes, I see people, you want to slightly reframe something. I mean, it can be hard to reframe a GPA of, 6.5 out of 7. But, if you took some sort of wonderful overseas trip to Central or South America or something, you don't want to frame it exactly the same way in your resume, because it kind of gets it's a little bit repetitious. But what often I find people do is I'll read their cover letter and it's like, oh, that sounds really mean, but just like, it's just standard. There's nothing special about it. And then I'll get to their resume and I was like, oh my God, you've done this and you've done this and you've done this. So if it were Ruth and she was going through that process, she might have just parked you because she's got heaps of people that have all ticked the boxes. And so she might have just gone, ticks the box, but it's really boring. Yeah. And then if they didn't get to your resume, they find out that there's all this fabulousness because you've put all that fabulousness into your resume, but you haven't put the fabulousness into your cover letter. So don't repeat yourself, but make sure the absolute cracking bits of who you are in both, all right? Depending on, because what recruiters do, we know that there's some eye tracking systems and we know that they sort of go like this and then they flick the page and then they go like that. So you want to make sure wherever they go, that if you've missed them here, you're going to catch them over here. But ultimately, the first page of your resume is what we call prime real estate. So you want to get the best of who you are on that first page, and you cover letter those first couple of paragraphs. So you want to have a career profile. I'll talk more about that in a minute. You want to include your education, summary of key skills and achievements. If you're, like perhaps you've come from another country, or you've been a stay-at-home mum for ages, and all your achievements now are sort of associated with your education, you could put the two together. I saw somebody do this the other day, which worked really well. You could make it education and summary of key skills and achievements, and then just talk about the assignments that you've done and the project and any research and any uni related stuff if you haven't yet got placement and some of that other stuff, so that then you can keep it really focused on, tailored to that role. Typical things you'll see here that there's a duplication of what's in your cover letter. So here's a sample. This is directly from one of the SCU samples. And they've been fabulous. If you go on to www.SCU/careers, the careers team have put together very industry-based ones. So if you're studying health, there's a health one, engineering, MBA, etc. I'm pretty sure there's an MBA one. Anyway, if there isn't one for you, grab the nearest and then just do a little bit of tweaking. I will send these slides out to you guys. There's some really handy, just things to really, really handy points. I won't go through all of them. What I will say is achievements, 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 achievements. So don't talk about, same as your cover letter, don't talk about what you did. You want to talk about the results of your work, most importantly. Your career profile is at the top of your first page of your, and it's also in your LinkedIn, and it's also a little bit of your, like, it's like the essence of who you are. If you're at a conference, it's like your elevator spiel. It's if you're, you meet a neighbor who's also in the same industry and they ask you who you are. I'm studying this, I'm really loving that, planning to get into this, may have an internship role with this. What are your thoughts? What have you enjoyed? What have you asked people then, if you're in that position, but it's the framing, it's the top of your LinkedIn. You'll have a summary at the top, and at the top of your cover, your resume, page 1. Include what you can do. Sometimes students have studied something in the 80s or the 90s. You can put your core education here, your current, and then you can actually put you can put it down towards the second, back towards second, bottom of the second page. You can put it under another heading, like if you did an arts degree in the 1980s, and you don't have to, when it's down there, you don't necessarily have to disclose that it's in the 80s. Up here, it's ethical to show it up here, but you can put it under a heading of other education. So you can still capitalize on, I don't know, that linguistics degree that you did in Canberra in 1990 or whatever. Yep. You'll see that, like, there's a little bit of repetition in terms of what I'm talking about here. We talked at the beginning of this session, I talked about things you're most proud of. I talked about valuable experience, career highlights. This stuff is your gold. Get comfy with this and spend the rest of your professional life essentially moving to build on all of these aspects, and you'll enjoy your working life. This is the bomb. This is it there. Your ambitions. What are my hopes? What are my dreams? How do I get there? What steps do I need to take? What sort of mentors should I get? What's happened so far? Where have I gone wrong? Where do I need to improve? What's the gaps in my learning? How can I get engaged and volunteer more? What skills do I specifically need to be that CEO? Perhaps I've got these these skills, but I'm missing these ones. Who's a great CEO what am I loving in their visionary style? I like this about what they do, but they're not so great on clarity. And then start cultivating that. Hang out with the people, if you want to be the CEO or whatever, start hanging out with them, find access to them, and everything, that your future lies in your capacity to build, build your experience, work on improving your, if you're listening, whether it's listening, whether it's speaking up at meetings, etc. Placement, I talked a lot about this. If you've had the good fortune or will have placement, it's gold. If you don't, it's okay too. You work with what you've got and don't let it get you down because you don't have this or this or this. But if you've got it, I've seen students I've worked with in the past, a lot of nursing students, social welfare students, and they get placement, which is fabulous, and it becomes part of the news story, tourism students. But then for those of you guys doing things like global leadership that may not have it, or that health one may or may not have it, the MBA, it's optional. MBA, you can do, actually, we get to work together because I run the internship, or have been running the internship for the MBA students. And as an example, through the Faculty of Business, we had one postgraduate students, is a Brazilian guy. I had one guy enrolled in the unit, and we know that is the way to, but it's hard because you've got to source the job himself. So what he did, he was a South American guy, and he founded a marketing company on the Gold Coast or Brisbane, and then he wanted to go back to South America, so then he negotiated with them to continue his placement from home, and it was a great experience for him, both he and the employer. And then he just recently posted that he graduated, but it was a wonderful experience. It was really challenging for him. He had some fantasies about what remote working would be like, so that was really interesting to watch him go through the challenges of, like, the time zone difference, and it was brilliant. And the employer was so grateful to have him, have his contribution. So it's an absolute win-win. I know that it can be, I think it should be compulsory, not because it's financially challenging, but if you could have compulsory paid, that would be the most ideal scenario. Placement, focus on achievements. I think we covered a lot of this. Any work that you've had, it might be in your country of origin, it might have been, if you're younger, probably not high school as a postgrad student, but anything, just try to put, it might be working. People often undervalue, like, they've worked in family businesses, and they kind of go to me, oh, I hear this really regularly, oh, but it's my dad's business, and it's a furniture business. And it's like, what do you do in that business? And often they're doing bookkeeping and admin or whatever. They're doing deliveries. Like, I had a guy that was in a program, the employability program. He had to keep leaving because he was helping his dad with the business. And so don't undervalue anything that or your husband's a tradie, and you do his bookkeeping. Like, so think about any work that you're doing, you wash dishes, it all has value, something comes out of it. The wonderful thing about professional development, and I kind of, again, taking a little bit of a two-pronged approach with this, add it to anything, but also see this as an alert to differentiate yourself for a position. This is where, by undertaking, so for example, the uni student associations, like this postgraduate association, there's other student association, I can't think of the name of it. They offer additional, so for example, you can do financial counselling, but the other student associations that's general, they offer like things like first aid, white cards, so working with children. So sometimes you can, and also online now, when we get to LinkedIn, as you move into sort of early mid-career, there's all sorts of free like webinars. So for example, in my profession, there's like My Future, or there's the careers associations, and they often have all the time. I can't tell you how many times there's like an opportunity to go to this and go to that. Well, just be discerning about the ones that will be really valuable for you. It is something, but it will make you stand out a little bit. Of LinkedIn has free courses. I'm a little reluctant now to mention these, but these are MOOCs. They're massive online classrooms. Now, they used to be free. Be really careful. There are two companies. edX, I'm still pretty confident with. I've done a couple of these, and then the other one is Coursera. Now, Coursera, a bit naughty. Like that. Essentially, the business model has recently changed. When they first started, basically they're platforms where the biggest universities on the globe, they offer short courses for minimal fees on a business model that $1 trillion bums on seats at $30 a pop is $1 trillion. Yeah. But from a consumer's perspective, it's wonderful. Just be really careful, because I haven't had a bad experience with Coursera, but with edX, but I did recently with Coursera, is that they'll charge, they didn't used to do this, but they'll charge you a monthly fee while you're completing the course. But they have the most amazing courses on there related to anything. And they're fabulous ways to build, and it looks great on your resume, fantastic in your cover letter. Automatic tracking systems. Tailoring is the key, and Ruth really made that clear. So when you set up here's a ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling moment. When you set up your Seek profile, you need to add your skills in there. Now, as you start to apply for jobs, it will tell you the skills that you don't have and the other candidates do. Have a look at the skills. If you believe you've got them, add them to your profile. So then your suite gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which means your odds, essentially it's online gambling for work. Yeah. You've got to keep up in the game to stay in the game, but you've got to understand how to play the game and how the system works. So it's all that keyword search, and that's why Resume Worded is really helpful, because it helps you, it looks for those keywords in there, so it looks at the value of those keywords against the algorithms and so forth, and then apply for some jobs on Seek that you don't want to go for, and then use it as a way to see what feedback that you get. You can get some good feedback from Seek through that. Take out any fancy headings, take out any tables, take out fancy font, take out fancy borders. Just use, as it says there, use the SCU CV tool before you send it. So there's a tool that you can use through. I haven't used that particular tool. I imagine it's probably something like Resume Worded. Their landing page has changed recently. It's slightly different, but you'll come to a page that looks similar to this. There are sample resumes. There's all sorts of amazing stuff. And then I might just launch really quickly into LinkedIn, and then we'll have plenty of time, probably finish up early, plenty of time for people to ask questions. Do you guys, who's currently got a LinkedIn? Are you happy with it? Oh, awesome, Wilson. So let's connect on LinkedIn. If you want to, I'm under Beck Brown, probably under Beck Brown Careers. Okay, don't have much. Oh, good, great timing. Okay. So here's my thing. Here's my thoughts on LinkedIn. The last couple of years, I think I mentioned, I've been collecting people in my profession as a sort of a research project, informal research project for myself to learn how I can help, people more, not as a way to largely, I've been using it as a way to promote myself. And in gathering and collecting these people, it's been fascinating to watch the behavior. So the first thing, most important thing I want you to know about LinkedIn, I have about, 650 connections on there, right? Now, I want you to have a guess, just for fun. What percentage of those people do you think post regularly on, or even like something, or are even active? And bearing in mind that 65, 70% of those 650 are career practitioners, or in leadership, something to do with employability, international education, some of the areas that I work in, business leadership, that sort of stuff. Have a guess what percentage of people actively engage, as in do something on there. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Anyone else want to have a go? Let's see. You're right, Ruth. Yeah, somewhere, I'd say at a guess, so it's 5%, so 10%, 60. Yeah, it's about 5%. Maybe Ashley, Yelin, you could be right. It could actually be less than 5%. Oh my God. I mean, it makes me want to think about, like, so until really watching that behavior over the last couple of years and using this as an exercise to watch, I used to teach LinkedIn from a little bit of a different perspective about, posting and doing this and doing that. It depends where you're at, and it really depends where you're up to with your career. And it also depends on what profession you're in. And there are a million variables. So what I would say is that your LinkedIn, you need to be on there. I would say that 100%. But maybe not. Like if you're just going into your first ever job here in Australia, I'd say don't worry about it. I'd spend more time. I would spend more time getting to know people in your community, get that part-time job. I would put all my energy everywhere else. But if you're postgrad and you've had as many of our postgrad students had a middle, senior, early career, whatever, some sort of professional life, and then you're topping this up to go, or you're changing professions, then give it a little bit more of a go. So what I would strongly suggest that you do have at the bare minimum is a photo, a blurb, and then really essentially just copying your resume after you've had LinkedIn, after you've had everybody look at it, the careers team, career one, you've had some feedback from a machine, you've had resume worded, and then just slot it in. And then sit back and then be really active in just trying to find people to connect with, and then spend some time watching, and then watch what comes through, who you need to connect to, reading other people's, do some stalking, professional stalking, I mean, and use it as a tool, a research tool, until such time where you want to be a leader in your profession. Because I think I used to teach it from the perspective that we all want to be leaders. And what I've realized is that people want a job in their profession, but then often, you know, when you get into middle stages of a career, there's a settling down stage where people, and it's natural, people will stay in, and so they're not on there promoting themselves, they're just doing their jobs and they're with their families or whatever, you know. So just think about it from the stage of where you're at. But if you want to be like, you know, at the top of your game, and you want to work for KPMG, and you want to, you know, you want to keep, if you're really ambitious, sure, go for it. But otherwise, just have some sort of presence and use it as a way to find out where there's all sorts of networking activities. You can find out who all the movers and the shakers are by just starting to collect people on there. And then you can see the roles, like you can just see a lot by just hanging back and watching. Then see what you do like, what you don't like about what people post, what makes you cringe, what makes you go, oh, that's fascinating, I really like that person. Then so use it as a way to see the styles of work and leadership and all that sort of stuff that really resonates with you. Then try to find out more about what they're doing, you know, all that sort of stuff. So avoid cliches, all those sorts of things. Connect with trusted individuals and organizations. That's a really big one. You'll find that people will be just be discerning. You don't have to have any number of people on there, particularly in early stages. Just, you know, just connect with your lecturers, connect with your other people in the course, connect with guest lecturers, connect with the people from the coffee shop, people you've done your projects with, your tutors, the people that you've done this, the postgraduate association, etc., your landlord. And then you'll find that, because it's sort of like, I don't know, your Facebook, the more you engage, the more, but you collect people to learn from them, and you're better to look at what others are doing. Stay away from any sensitive topics around. I would strongly suggest that. Yes, you can kind of find your place in it, but just remember that if you don't take that middle line, you'll isolate, and you can potentially, if you don't keep your mind open, you can miss opportunities of something that could be useful. So just easiest way is just kind of take a middle road. You can have really strong beliefs and feelings around homelessness and politics and all those sorts of things. And I'm not saying definitely not my place to say do or don't do anything that you love or feel passionate about. Just remember that it can potentially, just the same as Facebook, any of those sorts of things, you will isolate people, and that's fine. You know, some people are very happy to do that. Till you know where you clearly want to go, just hang and watch what's going on in there. Connect with trusted, consistent, keep your messaging brand. That's very important. Show knowledge. So if you do post things, just do it cautiously. Have a photo. So here's just a summary of the top tips. Have a profile photo, head and shoulders. No cats, monkeys, boyfriends, dogs. And that might sound silly, and like we already know that, but tons of people do. So just basic head and shoulders shot in some sort of, I would suggest for women, just covered sleeves. For men, not a t-shirt, not a hoodie. Seen lots of hoodies over the years. Just keep, just some sort of professional business attire. Make sure you're smiling. Often people forget to smile because it's like, it's not a passport, and also culturally in different parts of the world, that photo is a blank, but you want to just, look relaxed, relaxed, happy, professional head and shoulders shot with not too much going on. Then you could see other people's that you like that have got, some people do some fabulous stuff with, they work for, I don't know, Baker's Delight, and then they have bits of bread floating around the background. Sure, as long as it looks professional. I'm pulling a face, but sometimes people do it really well. Less is more. Experience, I would put all your experience in there. There's a bit of a shift towards professionals in my field. I noticed are starting not to put all the blah, blah, blah in there. I think for now, just put it all, just literally, you know, you can cut and paste pretty quickly. Follow, post, publish. Recommendations are always good. If you can get somebody to write a recommendation, write recommendations for other people is a really nice way to connect. So if you have a lecturer that you really like, it can be really beautiful. Write them maybe you've had them for a whole term and you've just loved. Find them on LinkedIn and just write them a recommendation and tell them how much you've appreciated them. You'll absolutely make their day. So you want to include like key areas of expertise. So as a student, you might be doing, you know, was it global leadership? And so under that might be oil and gas. You know, you're a specialist in it, so it's global leadership, but in the oil and gas industry, or it might be fine arts. So put those because then you will appear under anytime somebody looks for fine arts, you know, just as an example. So put some, and you can all do this. What students often do is they put, you know, like a graduate student, like, but what profession? So if you're a graduate in environmental science, you can even be more specific, plant species. And so then you can start to gather all your little plant species peeps. And you may not be ready for that, but that little bit of tweaking and that tailoring. Keywords, memorable, include industry. Keep your active. You can play around with your settings. I would strongly suggest go and have a look, have some fun looking at what other people do, what they're doing. Look at the organizations where they worked. Look at how long they've stayed there, see who they're connected to. Look at their, like if there's somebody that has come to, like maybe it's a student that's done a presentation at the uni and they're in your faculty, they were once in your faculty. Look at how they got to where they got to, what are they doing, what have they done, who have they worked for. It's a good way to see, learn more about your industry. Definitely include a summary at the beginning. I would actually go for something a little bit longer there, but be really specific if you can. Looks really nice, particularly like in early career. You can fatten your education out by like putting like key subjects you've done, projects. Like if you haven't got yet got a lot of work experience, you can fatten your education out, which looks really nice. You can use like you could write a little blurb and then just use some bullets and keywords for your education in there. Try to get a recommendation. Skills, add as many skills as you can to it. Add your volunteering, any part-time like volunteering roles, casual things that you can follow groups on there. And what you can do is, I use it a lot. I use it personally very, very much as an educational tool, but I use it as an educational tool in two ways. One, to learn to bring it back to industry, but also to look at, understand more deeply what's going on in my industry and who's in there and who's doing what, and what resources they're using, what issues are coming up, where do we have similarities in terms of the things that our clients are struggling with, etc., etc. And so I found it really useful when I shifted from that horrible fear that is obviously there for 95% of people in a group of connections in LinkedIn, of that fear of like the whole fear of posting, because it's like publicly speaking to however many connections that you have. Just using it as a way to understand, if you can take it away from it being a marketing tool, because what I've realized is that so few people are actually using it as a marketing tool, but it can be an amazing educational tool. And an incredible resource for understanding more about issues in your industry, and understanding who some of those key players are, some of those relationships, what conferences are happening, where people are traveling to, what topics are moving, what those clinch points are, and etc., etc. So I found it really helpful I found it much more helpful in the last couple of years looking at it as a research tool. And I would strongly suggest that you'd potentially find it more value. But as I said, if you want to be like, you want to be the leader in your, absolutely go for it. But I wouldn't burn yourself out trying to build this profile on there that may or may not, because you've still got to, yes, having a profile, yes, engaging and connecting and raising it, yes, all of that. I'm not denying any of that. But somewhere along the way, you're going to have some sort of interview, you know, some of those other processes will still, you can get headhunted. I have experienced that. And I know several other people that happens for, but it's kind of later in your career that happens. Think about it as a marathon rather than this thing. Again, I think I used to sort of teach it like this perspective. You just got to get up and get out there and think about it as something as it's an addition to your suite of things. But I would put your energy more into actually physically engaging in any association meetings, joining membership, some of that really active stuff that gives you specific things to put onto your LinkedIn, so that if somebody were to come and look for you or whatever, that sounds like a bit of a contradiction, but more tangible things than just spending all day on LinkedIn and, you know, self-promotion and all the rest of it. Because as I have seen, there's so few people that are actually doing that, which is probably quite revealing, really, in terms of the superficiality of it, I guess, in some ways. And again, that sounds a little bit like a contradiction. Okay, so I've done a ton of talking. We've still got plenty of time. What haven't I covered, or what would you like me to talk? I can talk about just about. If I don't have the skills or knowledge of it, I can always find that out for you. What would you like me to share more?
I've got a question about structuring resumes.
Yeah.
And I've gone and had a look at that Hayes one, and I've had a look at the SCU careers ones while you're chatting, and none of them really, they're very much for people just entering the workforce. I have 2 jobs. And so I always, that's why I have several resumes. Both jobs are on both resumes, but I guess I shuffle the order of certain things based on the role. Is there any guidance? So they're both current, but one of them I've been in longer than the other.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing of putting your order of your jobs in, do I put the one I started last at the top still?
Yeah, great question. So
they're similar roles. They're both in healthcare, just with different organisations.
Yeah, right. Okay. So quite a few different things to unpack there. Generally speaking, we say you put your most recent role, and you get it at the end of the first page after you've done your profile, you've done all your list of key achievements, you've got all your fabulous education in there, and then you get a nice little role at the bottom. I would think about some of those things that you mentioned, the specifics of think about what is going to sing your best story to that is the best fit for and so things like what's the best brand, sadly, what's got the best credit, you know, the best what is going to appeal most to that particular audience, because it's a marketing.
Yeah.
So sometimes there will be, you know, Tweed Hospital might look better than Byron Hospital. Yeah. You go for a job in Tweed Hospital, yeah, or vice versa. Or it might be that, you know, there's some sort of, I don't know, more of an association or a lot. So I would always think about your audience. I think it's great that you have a couple of resumes. I think it's great that you've identified that some of those are entry-level resumes. But what I would say is the Hayes one, you make it whatever you want.
Oh, the Hayes one looks really good. It was more the SCU nursing ones were not really relevant.
I guess if you think about audiences, that predominantly the careers team is tailoring it to we have a higher contingency of undergraduate students, early career. But again, you could just tweak it, you know, in terms of taking out some of those headings and things. But the Hayes one, I've had fabulous success personally with it. I've always had great people. People have had great success with it. A range of different backgrounds, different early career right through. And I think one of the things is the one with the competencies on there. I would, so does that answer the question around which one or which one?
And so I've kind of got a second part to that question, is that both my jobs, I've been with, the shortest duration is like 7 years. So I've been with both of them for a while. But within my time there, I've worked my way from a graduate nurse up to a management position. So, and obviously early in my career, I had graduate nurse listed as one role, and then ED nurse, and then CNS. And now that's not practical, because then I'd have a 12-page resume. So I guess I've currently got it structured as current. So the first year of employment to current, and then a heading that just says current role, all the detail that you would put in about that role. And then underneath, previous roles within the organisation that aren't elaborated on, because I guess my market is going to be healthcare, where you can see, well, each job adds on to the one before.
Perfect.
Is that, I guess
that's how I would suggest.
I no longer have to pad my resume, so to speak.
Yeah, and what a fabulous luxury that is. And so yes, apps. So I would take out any, and then you could just use like like you could put, just as you described it.
Yeah. You
could put the heading of the hospital, and then you could even just put a little, not a text box, but you could almost do a little diagram, not diagram, but like show them. Yeah.
Progression, yeah.
And then you could just make your points, talk about your key achievements, and you could make one of your achievements over a 12-year period, went from this position, this position, this position, you know what I mean?
I guess the thing that concern is, if I'm technically saying, you know, employed from 2007 to 2023, role associate nurse unit manager, I haven't been an associate nurse unit manager for that entire time.
Yeah, right.
So
you could put,
hence why I've sort of specified current role.
Yes.
Is that enough wording to make it not seem like you're false advertising as well?
No, I think that you could, as long as like you would look at it and say, no, I haven't, there's no fabrication in there. Yeah. But you can, but then having said all of that, it is about marketing as well. So you want to make sure that you strike that balance between authenticity, transparency, but also capitalizing on opportunity and presenting yourself in the best light. Yeah. And so if you feel uncomfortable with it, then it's probably not right. But if you think, no, that's perfectly clear and it is what it is, then that's perfect. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. Because it sounds to me as though you've achieved an enormous amount. So you want to strike that balance between showing that trajectory of that time period, and then also balancing that with your postgraduate study as well.
Yeah.
Also balancing it with any, so for you, what employers tell us that they want is a little bit like online students, in that we know that they want to have a module that they can work through on their own. They want to have a recording that they can listen to at night. They want to have a live class that they can attend. And employers are the same, in that they want you to come with work experience. They want you to be community minded. They want you to be demonstrate, no matter what role, some sort of leadership and easy to work with and get along with others. They want you to be educated, but they also want you to have operational kind of TAFE and other skills. Yeah. So it's more holistic, so you can tick off on all of those areas that demonstrates the wholeness of the person that comes through your activities, but also balancing the longevity of that employment, which demonstrates loyalty and trust. And you balance that with also, I'm a continuous learner, which is one of the things that they really, really value as well.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Those are great questions. What other things did you come? I mean, was there anything you came hoping to get that you haven't yet got from me? So I can, because you probably, it might be the same for someone else. Other than the randomness of my slides. Well, I'm going to be back here next week. I really appreciate that you've taken the time to, oh, here we go. Not yet. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Don't miss the interview one, purely for the reason that over the years, more recently, in the last couple of years, particularly in this online world that we're in, and we're at home, we haven't had to show up to classrooms, we don't have to show up, we can do all sorts of things from behind. I found that people's confidence, mental health things have risen, but particularly people's confidence. And so, and that's all age groups, all backgrounds, all those sorts of things. And so moving forward, business is back. Business is not fully back. You know, we don't have full flights traveling out of Brisbane, for example, and, you know, full back. But business is back, and people want to be engaging face to face more so now. There's a real shift towards that. There's hybrid roles, and there is this working from home, but now people are starting to realize some of the challenges of that. So, but my point is that two things is that you're going to have an interview most likely in an online environment. And the only way to overcome that is to push yourself through it. The other thing that I found so much so that's the bit where I've been most surprised at people's lack of preparation, and where they probably most need to spend some time. And it's kind of a catch-22, because if you get to the interview stage, yeah, your numbers are low, but what a shame to get there and then not know some of the things about making sure the lighting's right, head and shoulders, all that, some of that stuff, showing the hands and things. I've still got plenty of time. Anything else? All right. So I'll be back next week. I think I put it there. My email is put it again, background careers, for anybody that's listening at home. I run a series of one-on-one consultations. Something I love to do, which I haven't done for a little while, is part of my background is in positive psychology, so I do a hope mapping activity with students, which is great fun. And yeah, so if anybody wants to, I usually do 1 hour online Zoom meetings, to shoot me an email if you'd like to. And those of you guys, I know there's people that listen at home, like some help with any of that. Essentially, it's like a positive psychology process that we use for goal setting. It's a really nice way. I've used it myself personally, been really, really, really helpful. And I'll be back next week, and then we won't be back again until March next year. The team, Alison and Craig, had a really lovely lunch at the Gold Coast, and I was really privileged to be there. Had about 50 postgraduate students go through there. So shout out to all those students that were able to attend that one there. I think they'll be hosted at the other campuses as well. Great food. So I think they're going to run more of those next year, and I'll hopefully run a little bit of career stuff attached to those, because we know that, you know, majority of students that are here, they have aspirations for, you know, they may not necessarily want to be the CEO, but aspirations for professional. Most, probably, I think it's about 85-90% of students want to achieve something in their professional life. So some of that stuff coming up. And so reach out. Also, Alison reminded me, she's told me this, but the Postgraduate Association, they have a little bit of a ding-a-ling. They have money for things that they can help you with. So, for example, if you need to get you need transport to get to a job interview, perhaps you haven't got enough money to get the boots that you need. So there's some of those additional things that they can help you with. They told me the other day, they got somebody some mentoring for some research work that they were doing. So just be aware that they're a really, really fabulous organization, and their role is to really help as an association. And the membership, if you haven't already got your membership, the membership is free. They've got about 5,000 members, but there's so much of the services that don't get used. So I love that you've taken the time to come and hang out with me here today. And happy Friday. Hope you have a fabulous, fabulous weekend. And I'll see you guys next week. Well, take good care. Thank you for your time. Thanks for sitting here with me. And thanks for chatting, Ruth and Wilson. And yeah, lovely. I really appreciate Roxy. Hey, David. The people cut my people's internet. Who did we have here a minute ago? He was gone. I was like, oh, where did David go? All right. See you guys. Take care. Bye. Thank you.